and still learning is a bit of background to our business, because that really sort of lays out why we're about to go on a journey, moving really from being dairy farmers to managing people has been our primary day to day. So a bit of background for me. Didn't really want to be a farmer at all, actually, but ended up at Harper Adams in 1996 and wanted to be a farm consultant. Ended up back at the family farm, which was in 1991. My parents took on 150 acres up in West Yorkshire, like first generation tenancy, and went back there in 99. Grew over time to about 300 cows, did some on-farm processing. And I think the point I always make is that when we started on-farm processing, it was my parents that decided to go and do the diversification rather than myself and my wife, Catherine. So the older generation went to do the diversification, which meant that the younger generation could actually learn the mistakes on the farm and look at growing the farming business. A couple of key areas for me. I joined a New Zealand-led grazing group in 2004, and also which ultimately led to me applying for a Nuffield scholarship. I'm successful to do so. Another point here, really, in terms of experiences, is traveling sort of America, Australia, and New Zealand for 11 weeks when I was 26. Was obviously a game changer for me, and something I'm still learning from today. And parents really not wanting to grow the business, so along with Ollie Hall, who's many of you may know from Anderson's now, set up Evolution Farming in 2009-10. This slide is just a bit of a timeline, which sort of shows the ups and downs of really trying to build a dairy business from scratch. Many of the ups and downs through a very low milk price, and then not really making enough money when the milk price was very good as well. I think there's several points here to do with people. Once we'd employed my first person when I got back from scholarship, then you're on that journey then, really, because when you employ one person, you're employing two, and so on and so on. Took on various farms. I think a real game changer for our business was in 2016 when we took on the old co-op farm at Leicester, and that basically doubled cow numbers from 500 milking to 1,000 then over 3 farms. We also then got involved with Cholmondeley Estate, which then created Cholmondeley Farms Limited, look after 3 farms for them today. A few changes in the ownership structure as well. At the time we did consultancy, and Ollie decided to move away from being a director of the company to, I guess, becoming an investor, so he could focus on the Anderson's business, which he's involved with today. Charlie came in, actually weirdly, from consultancy, so he came from Brown & Co and joined us, and very sort of bringing forward to 2021, we've just sold a third of our business to Jim and Matthew Dobson, who many of you might know from those the guys that Jim started Dunby, a meat processing business. And just put it in perspective of people at peak, they employed about 5,500 people. So where we are today, we're milking 3,300 cows on 9 sites, looking after about 10,000 acres of land for other people. And when people always ask me, so how much land do you own? Sadly, I say none, which is unfortunate, but there you go. That's the nature of tenant farming, contract farming, etc. We also look after some beef and some sheep on a small scale, and we have an in-house sort of contracted business as well. So including office guys in the office, and all up today, we employ, I think, 56 people on last month's payroll, including ourselves. The system choice, I think, is quite relevant to people as well, because we're all block calving. So on one farm, we do carve a little spring block when we're mainly autumn, but all the other farms are either autumn or spring. And I think if we were all year round calving at this scale so far apart, I think that'd be a real pain and create real challenges for us up and beyond where we are now. I think the fact that we can, throw people at a farm for calving or mating, or if they've got a problem, have that ability within the business to react and get over and help people. I think that's a good thing for us. I think the system as well is relatively prescriptive, which allows trainee managers to come through the ranks a lot easier than, I say, being highly technical, which we're not. We're at the lower end of the yield spectrum, so our springs aspire to be 5.5 to 5.7 a cow, and the autumns are aspirationally 6 to 6.5. A few different types of models operated, I guess not really relevant to the people side, but just to say we're a mix of tenancies, management agreements, and contract farming agreements. And back to the system really, and I think again when we're talking about people, I've mentioned about the block calving, all the rest of it. I think high speed parlours is an absolute key. And that's synonymous with seasonal calving. It's not about sweating the asset and having people in there 3 times a day for several hours. It's about getting it in and out as quickly as possible. This is just our biggest farm at Leicester. So that's a site we took on in 2016, and this season we're going to milk with 858 pregnancies, of which just in the cows alone 70% in 6 weeks, and most of the heifers are in 6 weeks. So we're going to be pretty busy, and it probably just illustrates the peak workload involved here, because not only have we got 858 calves, about 500 of them are actually in calf to sex semen, so there'll be dairy heifers that will be taken through to weaning and beyond as well. So creating quite a big workforce there, probably at a peak of team of 8, and managing rosters and making sure people don't get overtired and stuff like that. And so, the contracting is quite a big part of our business. So in terms of internal, going around the different farms, and again, I think the nice thing here in terms of people is that, when we take Harper students on, or Nottingham, Newcastle, whatever, that people can actually have a bit of time on the tractors, a bit of time in the cows and in the office or wherever they want. And I think that works out pretty well, to get an appreciation of the whole business. So far, I think I found it personally easier to manage our own team in-house, doing our operations, rather than dealing with probably what would be 15 to 20 different contractors in different parts of the country. This is just a bit of a snapshot of the dairy conversion as well. This is quite interesting. When we took this farm on, it had 200 suckler cows, longhorns, so they had three-year groups of cattle that they were finishing. It's taking so long to finish them. We actually converted it to a 550 cow dairy, and we've actually got the same amount of staff as they had with the suckler cows before. So quite a transformation. We put a 5100 in on this site. Comparing it to the Leicester site, we've actually got 2 24/48 swing herbs on there.
Tom,
yeah.
When you're sorry to interrupt. When you're sort of going through that decision on parlours and cows and whatnot, like how long is too long? What's I think cut off in terms of times?
I think really, in an ideal world, if all our guys start at 5:30 in the morning, and on an average day, on an average of the year, if those guys can be washing up or nearly done washing for 8 a.m, that sounds pretty sensible. And I think our bigger farms start milking at 2:30 in the afternoon to 3, but they really want to be done for 5:30. Now, obviously, if you're calving and you've got a big batch of red tapes and a colostrum group to look at, it's going to take longer. But so really, like at Leicester, at the farm at Leicester, when you're up and running, it's about 300 cows an hour. So the challenge for that farm this year, Chris, is that there's 850 cows, of which by the time we've actually finished calving, there'll be 810, 820 going through the parlour. So that's actually going to be interesting. Going to be quite an interesting one, because it's going to put a different dynamic into the speed of milking. But I think what it is going to do is force Ivan, the manager there, to to do more about rotas and maybe people milking once a day rather than milking twice a day. So yeah, that's going to be quite. We've actually left enough room in that site for a third 24/48, but I think we're just going to sort of suck it and see this year and see how it pans out.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
I guess this slide's really it's people, but it's accountability as well. And we've got an advisory board mentioned at the top, which meets quarterly, and we've got an investor board that meets monthly. And I suppose this is the first real, in terms of the advisory board, changes that have come since Jim and Matthew Dobson got involved. And I think making us accountable on a monthly basis. And part of that investor board meeting would be a if you like, a risk register when it comes to sort of people and where the gaps are in the business, where we need to recruit and where we need to look forward and recruit more. And so again, a lot of, I mean, if we spent as much time talking about the cows as we do the people, it'd be, a different situation. This is absolute key now, that people have a career ladder within our business, that people know that they can start on day one having never milked a cow or driven tractor and end up wherever they want to get to. And wherever they want to get to can include their own farm, can include an agreement with us, and could include being a director of our business and anywhere in between. What we've done is we've really started to create this template so everybody knows where they're at. So the herdsperson would be on, well, day one person would be on 22 grand salary. The next person up would be on 24 to 26 as a 2IC or second in charge. Trainee unit manager would be 28, and then a unit manager would be 35k a year. When you become a unit manager, you are eligible for the bonus, and the bonus is based on £18 a cow per year. So if you had 1,000 cows, you could earn up to 18 grand, and that's split down between whether somebody meets their budget or not. It's split down on a separate line of meeting key KPIs, 6-week in calf rate, etc. And it's broken down again on whether they've done their compliance, so whether the health and safety, their new starter forms, they've adhered to all the meetings that we asked them to, and that sort of stuff. So in other words, if you have a poor year because of drought or milk price, but you're still a good farmer, you could still get your bonus, half your bonus anyway, or whatever. So we've found that's worked quite well. I think everybody always says they're never going to tell each other what they earn, but they always do. So I think the big point here is, having that structure, and people know that, because a trainee, you need to want to be a trainee manager because it's more responsibility. As a trainee unit manager, if you think you can earn another 7 grand by making the jump to manager, and then the bonus, it's actually a big leap. Most people get provided houses as well, either shared accommodation or whatever. Stuff we've put in place, regular reviews. I think with a lot of this stuff, it's easy to say you're going to do it, and then you've got to do it and stick to it. And this is what I guess we've not been good at. This is what we're now getting better at. Invested in training. I mean, we've always paid for foot trimming, AI, whatever. People, decent suggestion of. We've been keen for that. I think now we just literally put in the start together an actual program for our unit managers, so that if you like, there's an end date, a graduation point where the next opportunity comes up. It's that unit manager that's going to be the trainee unit manager that will become the unit manager of our next farm. So that's really important that those guys get fully invested in what we're trying to do. I know COVID's been a real challenge, but there is a strong social side to the business, and we often call each other family, really. So much so that my own parents say that if they work for me and weren't related to me, I might see more of them and care more about them, but I don't know how true that is. But that's true. I think everybody looks out for each other, and the challenge as we grow is to keep that as we endeavour to become more corporate with the family feel. I think that's definitely going to be a challenge. I think we haven't really had any issues recruiting new people. I would say we've had a rocky probably 6 weeks, or we had a month, sort of finishing 2 weeks ago, where, you know, we changed the ownership a little bit of the business. A few people wanted to step off. Trouble with some of the younger ones, you know, and actually you've just got to ride it out. You know, you can get quite down, you know, key people or whatever moving on, you know, just got to get through it and get to the other side of that. Constantly just trying to bring new people on, and I think where we're at with, certainly with the managers, is really promoting people from within rather than bringing people into the business. I think that's definitely the way to go for us. So the aim for us ultimately is to attract the best people to work for us, and if you like, make it attractive to them either through the routes I said earlier, and that's really working out where they want to go and what they want to do. It is all about the 56 people that work in this business, and I suppose stuff we've done or we've put in place to try that is, and it has been difficult with COVID, is twice a year we have one, you know, we have a big get together. So in January, we're just debating now whether, with everything going on with the latest strain of COVID, that will happen, but we get everybody together for like a conference one evening or Friday evening in January. So why January? Well, all the spring calving herds are dry, and all the autumn calving herds have got the bulls in, and it's just an easier time before we start calving the spring herds. So we get people together. Last time we had Joe Speed from Kite, who's in the picture, talking about cow signals, which really appealed to the younger one, you know, anything from weekend staff, young guys, to the older ends, key stakeholders, feed reps, tractor reps, whoever really wants to, you know, services our business, be involved and get to know what we do. We had Arla came and gave a talk talking about, you know, because at the end of the day, these guys produce thousands of litres of milk. Where does it go? The brands it wants to go in. My sister's a paramedic. She was talking about the talk on first aid, and the best part of the night was every unit manager or trainee had to do a little PowerPoint about their farm and their team, and there was a lot of nerves, but went down really well, and they got a lot from it. We also do awards, Farm of the Year, Best Improved, and then Rising Stars and other little one-offs and Farming Hero Award and stuff like that. I think other thing we initiated, which is bloody hard work actually, is wearing of high vis on farms as well. But I think it's twofold really. One, I was on a silage clamp one night. I looked down and the dairy team were waiting to sheet up in the dark, and they're all in the high vis, and I could see them all. And I thought, yeah, that's obvious. I get that, but it promotes, I think, a pretty good image for our business that we are taking safety hopefully seriously and looking out for our guys. We've got a massive age gap. We've probably got 13 would be the youngest, 13-year-old would be the youngest on the payroll, and 67 would be the oldest, but our average age is about 24. Staff recruitment, we hardly ever advertise at all, as in paid advertising. Social media has been the driving force around nearly every single person in our business, whether it's mainly Facebook, but Twitter as well. So brand growth is something that I'd really advocate if you wanted to recruit people. You know, Facebook, it is free, but the time it takes shouldn't be underestimated at all to grow your followers and to grow your brand. I think what was quite good for us is that when Ollie and I started the business, we didn't call it Ollie and Tom Farming. You know, we called it something that wasn't associated with our names, and I think that in itself has been helpful in creating a brand, because people don't say they work for Tom Rawson anymore. You know, they say they work for Evolution or Evo or whatever, really. Links with universities and colleges. You know, this is two guys that work for us. So Laura on the left, she's in charge of animal welfare and animal compliance, and Emily on the right, she's trainee consultant and looks after the ALA compliance and helps Charlie with the budgets, etc. So they're at a careers fair at Askham Bryan, which is our local ag college here, and we've done talks Newcastle, Nottingham, Askham Bryan. I went to speak to Reese Heath the other week, handed out some high-vis woolly hats with the brand on, blah, blah, blah. So really formulating that, really trying to get people engaged. And you get a lot of people throwing rocks at you, but it's definitely worth it. You know, those, like we said, the hats are £3.50 each. You know, if we give away 100, 350 quid, if we recruit one person, was it worth it? Yeah, of course it was. Another thing we've done this year, which has been a really good move so far, we have had Harper students over the years. I would say we mixed success in terms of how many people come for interview. So this year we looked into and decided to do a scholarship with Harper. So we're not only are we offering a year out placement job, but we offered £4,500 towards their tuition fees. My thoughts were that if the person enjoyed their 15 months with us and that joined the business at the end, postgraduate, in a few years, was £4,500 worth it? Of course it was. And we've actually ended up with one scholar, but 3 other people who I interviewed as part of the 9 accepted a placement job without a scholarship as well, which is quite exciting. So we've got 4 Harper students starting July, which will be interesting and fun times, I guess. Find a friend scheme. So we've offered every employee in Evolution 500 quid if they introduce somebody to the business and that person stays 6 months. So, you know, why wouldn't they? And Sally, who's a trainee manager at a home farm, her sister's just started working for us. So I think she's willing and hoping she's going to stay 6 months and get her 500 quid. The trainee management scheme I spoke about a few minutes ago, and it's about now delivering not just these guys working and learning on the farm, but getting them off farm into an environment where, as trainee managers, we've got 4 trainee dairy managers this year and 1 trainee contracting manager. So I want them to really gel as a cohort, really, and you know, really grow within the business and be next year's managers, and then somebody else can step up for that. Another scheme we do, which again is on hold at the minute, but we've got links in New Zealand and Australia. So Tom Mason, he is a fellow Nuffield. It was on my year in 2005. And we've had 3 people now go and work for him. We've paid for the flights, teed them up with Tom and Susie. They've been picked up from the airport, given a job for a period of time, and then come back. And it's been a mega experience for those guys. You know, Tom's running exactly the same system as we are, but over in New Zealand, where it all began, I suppose. Charlie used to work for a contract harvesting crew in Australia, and one guy's been through that. So hopefully times change again, we can get back to doing that. We've got my eldest son and another guy that works for us. They're only 15, 16 next year, but they're just going to go for 10 weeks and between GCSEs and going to Reseath Ag College and sort of get into it. And that's what we're hoping, and just really get the enthusiasm going, experiences and forging those links. So this is just my challenges so far, and definitely serious lack of cash. You know, grown this business. You know, I've been so lucky with the people that have supported us. Ollie's parents, amazing. Charlie's parents, amazing, and other people associated with the dairy industry. You know, really backed us in some pretty low moments. Continue to back us, and we'll always be grateful for that. One downside was, I'd say, the brand, interestingly, grown quicker than our skills, and we took too much on, but we just kept going. And I think now it's really interesting when you look at the performance of the cows, etc., and the farms. It's getting better and better, and stuff we're putting in place, and we're learning. And we've got the scale of business now, and we attract, you know, really top business people like Jim and Matthew Dobson, and get them involved and learn from non-farming businesses as well, and just have a real point of difference. Ultimately, learning to manage people has been the biggest challenge. Like, you know, but I think we go beyond the pale really to really help people outside of work, inside of work. And I think one thing I've learned personally is I'm not a shouter, and I think that really helps, because people sometimes want you to shout, but when you don't, it just diffuses the whole situation, and they just listen. And that's been yeah, great for me to get that. Completely opposite to my dad before me. So yeah, just learning really. So just the final slide really, just before we start on questions, continuing to grow the business. We're looking at growing the beef side with 2,000 beef calves roughly born every year as a minimum, and every tenner we can add on to that value somewhere along the chain is 20 grand, 50 quid, 100 grand. It's the scale means it's quite a serious part of the business, and ultimately becoming more professional. So that's it for the main presentation. Chris, do you want to? It's about half an hour. Is about right? Do you want to go to some questions?
Yeah, pretty much spot on, half an hour. Perfect. Yeah. Do we have any questions from anybody? Anybody, please. Oh, do you want to unmute yourself, Tom?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. Tom Gribble, dairy farming, just down the road from Chris. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, my question really is, how do you decide on what level to invest when you take on a new farm? Is that the length of the contract, the type of contract? I presume all your milk goes to Arla, so that's that's a big tick, isn't it? But yeah, how do you decide on level of investment, and who do you talk that through with? Is that your investment team, or do you have a gut feel for it sometimes?
Yeah, I think, firstly, all our farms are Arla. So we are very, very grateful for that position. Yeah. Many people think it's one Arla contract, but it's not. We actually look after 5 Arla contracts. So Evolution's got its own. My wife and I have got our own, and then 3 contract farming arrangements also had their own anyway. So that's okay. But it puts us in a good position. Yeah, I mean, where we're at with investment, it definitely a few months ago before the new guys got involved, it was definitely me and Charlie wondering, like, a bit of an envelope, and maybe Charlie got his Excel sheet open if we were lucky, and we sort of said, yeah, that feels about right. Whereas now it's a lot more structured in what we're going to invest. I think one thing Charlie would say, it's where to invest as well, because the last thing we built at Leicester was the slurry lagoon, whereas it should have been the first thing, because it made life a hell of a lot easier when we were starting milking there. So there's little stuff like that you learn, and I think it's getting the scale of the farm right. And I don't know if, like at the Leicester farm, milking to 850 might just break it. Everybody's keen to do it. The manager's keen. And if you look from a financial point of view, it's a no-brainer. But going from 650 to 850, there's a lot of pressure on the guys there to keep the performance the same. So I think that's going to be an interesting experiment at a large scale. I'm pretty adamant as well, though, that your 250 cow herds have got a future as well. We're 250 at home on a tenancy, and the financial performance getting better every year. And I think there's no reason why you can't get that, all the varying scales right. I think overspending, like, we're interested in it. Should we have put a rotary in at Leicester? Well, interestingly, when we signed off the capital spend for that farm in 2016-17, the budgeted milk price was 23.5p. We're looking at the budgeted milk price, including the 13th payment next year, to be about 40p. So yes. At the time, just coming out of that recession, we knew that a 24-48 Waikato, you can run them on next to nothing. Like, you can run them on thin air and milk a lot of cows. So 2 of those next to each other was obviously more obvious than a rotary. Definitely people will say you're milking 850 cows. Why the hell haven't you got an 80-bale rotary? But things change, don't they? And I think future-proofing the business was, at the time, was more important.
Would you have made a different decision looking back on it now?
Well, I think if you set out to milk 850 cows, I think you'd have definitely put a rotary in from the word go. I think if we'd have set out to milk 850 cows, it'd have been a fair disaster, because we know a lot more about milking them now than we did then.
Do we have any more questions from anyone? Yeah, we've got a hand up, Charles.
Yeah, thank you. Tom, congratulations on your approach to farm safety. You get a really big thumbs up from me on that. It's just something everybody in our industry needs to be doing. So that's one thing. Two questions. I noticed you have a mix of organic and conventional. Is that something to do with the farm's historical, what, you know, a farm you take on, that's what they do? And the second question, I've almost forgotten it. Robots. Have you looked at robot milkers? Is that something you're looking at in the future?
Yeah, so on the organic, over half the land base is organic. That's purely because the landowners, Lord and Lady Chumley, want to be organic. So I guess that's what that's the hand you've been dealt, and you just got to get on with it. We haven't got any organic units in our own name. I think being involved in both is quite a nice mix. To be honest, there's lessons that we can learn from both systems, and effectively the system is the system, in terms of cows across all the farms. In terms of robots, no, we haven't. I'm struggling to see our system of dairying working with robots, and frightening if we were in a robot system at the Leicester farm and we decided to go to 850 cows, how many robots we'd have to have would be pretty obscene, really. Robots on a smaller scale or on a bigger scale, if you're fully housed, absolutely can see it makes sense. I think one thing I've found is quite a lot of robots gone in around us in West Yorkshire, and because people hated staff, so they put robots in and they still need staff. I don't think they really got sold the full story on that one, but yeah. So robots, I think maybe for us, people keep dabbling in robot arms on rotaries and stuff like that to displace labour in the future. That's all sensible stuff. I'd just like to think that part of the legacy that we're creating in this business is that we have given a career and we give a career to 56 people. And actually their families, hopefully even some of them scarily, next generation of those people are starting to come through and work for us as well. So I think that means a lot to us. And I think, if we can make this system work, and I think if we can, we're just trialing some pedometers at home and maybe taking the pressure off breeding a bit and stuff like that, and just a bit of technology that we can weave in, that we just want to keep the system as simple as possible.
Excellent, thank you.
Do we have any more questions, please? I most definitely do. Tom, you haven't mentioned much about young stock. Are you rearing those all on farm? How are they handled?
Yep. So the young stock, the organic farms rear their own young stock because that makes sense. What we've done on conventional side this year, we've hopefully about 700 heifers to be born from sex semen between two dairies on the two spring herds. So they're going to be reared in a new block of land we've just taken on one site, and then all the autumn herds bar one are flying herds. So they're stocked with rollover cows from our spring herd, sort of empties that then become pregnant for the following autumn, or surplus stock from the heifers. So our plan is that we'll end up with about 400 surplus pregnant animals a year, and that's hopefully where the growth of our business is going to come from. Last year we took on 3 dairy farms in a year, which was a bit excessive, to be honest. I know they're like buses and all come along at once or nothing for ages, but I think if we can create a system where we've got a nice amount of 300-400 surplus cows a year, and we can say, look, we've got the designs to take on a new farm a year. If we need some money out or we've got another project on, actually we're not going to grow this year, we've got 300 or 400 cows to sell. I think that's or invest in a CFA or whatever. I think that's going to be the way to go. So I think centralizing Evolution's own young stock hopefully is the right strategy, so we can have one full-time person just looking after young stock. We do weigh the heifers more or less every month as well, which has been quite interesting development and drafting out bought a mobile crush with a manual drafter on it and that sort of stuff. So we are definitely getting more focused on stuff.
Do we have any more questions there? Sorry.
Chris, I've got another one. Tom, just wondering, people always talk about the magic number of staff to cows, and you get all these things, 1 man to 100 cows, 1 man to 150 or whatever. How do you view that? Because obviously with 56 people over 3,300 cows, you're a lot less than that, but obviously you've got the contracting. Is there anything like a true figure, or is it always going to be skewed by people having contract labour in? Or is it a figure we just need to forget about in the dairy industry?
I think the difficulty is that I can honestly say in our business that there's no free labour. Absolutely none. I mean, even to the point where my 2 sons, who are 13 and 15, are both on the payroll. So they fill a timesheet in and get paid when they go out onto our farm or any other farm. So there's absolutely no free labour in our business at all. I think ultimately where we start off is not including houses. You want to be about 5p a litre, and that normally works back to 1 person per 100 cows, I think. Because I think where we've got to be a bit careful is running it too tight, because what I want room to be able to employ some weekend staff and young people that want to come into the business. Now they need paying, but I'm not going to pay my business back so they can't join. So I don't think, but I think working on that, I think the trick is, it's a bit like my business at home, for example. There's 260 cows. We've got Sally, who's a trainee manager, so she's on 28. She lives with us, so we don't have a house to provide for her because she lives in our house with us. And we've got Jess on 26 as a 2IC, experienced 2IC. She's got her own house up the road. And then beyond that, we have one of the contracting young lads come on for the winter because it's autumn calving. And then weekend staff is my boys or their friends from school, or £4 an hour, £5, whatever the go is. So actually that then in the summer, or when the cows go out and you've only got to scrape once a day, you pair it back to 2 people, which is Jess and Sally. So actually looking at quite a cheap, in terms of labour, I think it's pretty good value. But what have we achieved? Well, we've got a trainee manager on my home farm. Well, that's perfect, because we can talk, all the training my wife and I can give them in terms of fully focused on our farm, and they get to know everything. A good steady number 2, and Sally will graduate from this farm and go on to be a manager, and there'll be another trainee manager come. And if it's that prescribed system, they can get into and just learn the job. So I think it's about sharing people between the farms as well, and I suppose that's what advantage our scale gives us, and having autumn and spring blocks.
No, that's interesting. Thank you.
Have we any more questions from anyone, please? I've got a whole list here, but I'm conscious I don't want to occupy the entire talk. Tom, you mentioned various incentives, a lot of them financial, bonuses and whatnot, to keep people interested. What have you found that your staff actually value the most? So this comes from, I was reading a bit of research the other day that was saying that employers tend to think that finance is the most important thing, whereas actually if you have a chat to people, the people actually doing the work, actually finance perhaps comes second or third, primarily behind training. I was just wondering sort of what your views were on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think people appreciate being taken out for a meal that might have cost us 30 quid more than getting 40 quid in cash. No doubt about it. And it's like how everybody in the business gets Christmas hamper from our local farm shop at home. And I think people really do appreciate stuff like that. rather than, I think the problem now, if you give somebody £100 cash, it's just gone, isn't it? Like instantly. I think you're right. It's not all about money. And actually one of our 5 full managers got the option of either going from 30 to 35 grand or taking more time off. And only one of them chose more time off, because actually they're fully invested in going for it and getting up the careers. I think the other stuff, it's a bit like the other week, we took 5 of our managers to the Nuffield conference for a couple of nights, and that's massively appreciated. No doubt about it. Genus, who we buy all our seamen through and have a good relationship, they hosted it as the Bull Stud, and we had all the trainee managers, all the office staff. They've got a little buildings department as well. They came along and we hosted there for the day. And I think we've been to Arlo on a bit of a trip as well. I think as well, if I can, if it works in, take the guys out for lunch every now and again, or evening meal, like I said, and that sort of stuff. I mean, we try and go to the pub a bit. And I think it's difficult. There is more to life than work and work friends. But I think people are into it and they like being a part of it. And I think the other thing we've been really open with our business and what's happening, the changes, and with the guys that work for us. And I think they feel really part of it. And as I say, it comes back to that brand and them hopefully being proud to work for Evolution.
Yeah, so I suppose it sounds a lot like actually not reinventing the wheel, but just going for doing the simple stuff and doing the simple stuff well, really.
Yeah, like I'm not coming on here tonight saying we've cracked it. I'm just telling you what's worked and what's not worked. And we've got a long way to go, but there's no doubt about it. We're definitely getting there. I mean, to take on 3 dairy units last year and to be able to resource them was fantastic, really.
Brilliant. We've got another hand has just come up. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi, I just want to ask, do you do like character assessments? Because obviously bringing people in from different units, characters are a massive thing, and you've got to make sure that they don't clash. Because I know now there's lots of different ways you can assess characters and try and bring them together so that they get on.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. Yeah, we had a session last year on Paul Harris came in and we got all the managers in one room and we did a session on that and what colour everybody was, and that was a good fun day. I think ultimately part of working out people is when we get together as a wider business. And when people have had a few beers or a few shots of whatever, I think you start to really work out who can get on with who when the heat's on. I mean, a very sad moment in our history was when we had a load of cows die of nitrogen poisoning one night. And some of us were up for 43 hours without going to bed. And I tell you what, we didn't have to do any more farm appraisals for ages after that, because you knew exactly who was needed to be where and who was the natural leaders and who were going to fall by the wayside. So it's not something I want to do again, but it definitely worked out, who needed to be where. I think a big part of my job really is talent spotting, talking to the managers, talking to the junior staff when I go around, having a beer with them, or just a bit of a yabber in the parlour. Or quite often when I go on farm, if I sleep over, I'll always milk the next morning or jump on a tractor for a bit and actually just get to know them. I think if you're not careful, when you get to our scale and maybe beyond, is that you spend all your life talking to the managers and you never really get to know the other guys in the business. And I think that's really important, because maybe not tomorrow's managers, but 3 years' time, that my trainee management team might be one of the girls that works at Leicester 3 mornings a week or whatever. And I think that's really important to engage with these guys and work them all out. And I think we know better how we're going to map their career out for them than they know themselves. If it sounds weird, because like we've seen it before, and see what makes people tick and really where we can get the best out of them for their own benefit.
I suppose at risk of adding a slight negative to that, if you spin it the other way around, what's your approach if you find that you've got someone that's keen to progress, perhaps you don't have the same confidence in them that they do, or something along those lines?
If what? Sorry, Chris.
What's your approach if you've got someone that's, I don't know, perhaps keen to progress, or perhaps you don't quite have the same confidence in their ability that they do?
I think if somebody's not fitting the business now, we need to persuade them that it's not for them. And that's becoming even more relevant. I think we've been guilty of keeping people on too long when they needed to go.
Mm.
And it's the old thing of hiring slow and firing fast. But we've definitely been guilty of hiring fast and firing slow. And I think, yeah, all right, it's not the world we live in where where you can deliberate ages over recruiting somebody, but I think making the call that somebody's not working out, and I think quite often they've got a very young viewer on the old Kath Ratcliffe's. I think that's the thing about really persuading people. It's not for them, and it isn't for that, and it isn't just about us, because it is people milk cows, drive tractors, or whatever. But you can often see that it isn't for them, and it's maybe people coming to realization actually you'd expect people to never speak to you again, but actually come back in a year's time and say, yeah, you were right. And in fact we've had a girl who couldn't get on with a line manager who left our business a year ago, and I got a message from her the other week saying she was ready to come home, and she's now come back. And what a change, And I said at the time, she said, "Oh, you're going to be mad with me because I'm leaving." I said, "No, I'm not. You need to go away to come back again, to maybe work for other people." Because I think when people work for us too long, I think they forget maybe what other employers are like. And so I've absolutely no problem if people need to go away to do that. So
yeah. Have we got any more questions on the line from anybody?
I've got one more. Sorry.
Hello.
Sorry, I've got a couple. Would you like to go first, Jennifer?
I'm trustee South of England, and I just want to say thank you so much, Tom. You are a credit to the farming community, and thank you so much for your talk this evening. You've answered more questions and probably raised more, but thank you so much for that. It was a really, really interesting and stimulating conference tonight, so thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Tom?
I was just going to ask Tom, who do you talk to? Who do you take business advice from? Obviously you've got the Dobsons involved now, but yeah, where's your driving force? Who do you bounce off?
I mean one thing for me, I'm in the car a lot, probably too much. Normally do about 1,000 miles a week. And I think the important thing is having a couple of industry pals that are also doing the same amount of miles. So the director of one of the directors of the feed company we use, who we go on holiday with every year, and a guy that works for Genus that I've been truly friends with for 15 years. And I think, just bouncing ideas off them and just yabbering away, really.
Yeah.
and working it out. I think one thing, we're lucky because I went to a school of 1,500 kids, and the only kids that came off farms were me and my sister, because we're so urban where we live in West Yorkshire. And I think a lot of my friends, I've got many farming friends, but I've got many non-farming friends as well. And it's actually really interesting to start talking to them. And actually, like I don't know, like I said, at the tyre fitters yesterday, and he was on about him having problem with people and start, wherever, an industry growth. I've got a guy that I'm catching up with in a few weeks' time, and he left school and didn't know what he was going to do, and he started like a lifting platform business, and that looks like really interesting the way that's grown and stuff like that. Ultimately, I think the Nuffield Scholarship's been a major area for me, and I'm lucky enough to be a trustee of that as well now. And just meeting up with those people, certain people to call and get in touch with, and you can bounce stuff off. Another really good area. I think ultimately the number one for me, it sounds pretty sad to say so, to keep it on this call, please, is my wife. Because Catherine and I, we're very much in it together. And we're back. And the good thing is she's flat out as well. She works at HSBC 2 days a week. She has her family abattoir account. She does Evolutions figures supporting Charlie, and she does our family business as well, and 3 kids. And we've normally got, including Charlie Burgoyne's son Freddie, we've normally got 7 of us living in the house at any one time. So we're both full on, and I think that's the point. We're completely fully invested, and the kids are as well. I think that's pretty cool. Most people say we're pretty boring in terms of all we talk about is bloody evolution. It's what we all like doing.
It sounds like it's a manic house, and there's something going on every second, I think.
It's definitely a very difficult working out where I was going to go on this Zoom call without having to shout at people for making too much noise.
You're lucky you're in the house, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're clocking up sort of the thick end of 1,000 miles a week. How do you balance it all? How do you find time for sort of family and work and all the rest of it?
I think that's really back to my point that we're in a lucky, because I think people would say to me, yeah, it's all right, Tom, all this, but you've no time for your family and all that. And that's why I'm saying, because the family's so into the business. I mean, my little girl as well, I mean, her knowledge is unbelievable for 9 years old. And, it's just the family's part of the ride, if you know what I mean. That's what we like to do. And a bit like the boys know in particular that they're going to go to New Zealand and all the rest of it. And I think, just marrying it all up, really. I think somebody gave me a really good bit of advice the other week. He was retiring. I went to look at buying his cows off him. And he said, look, just make sure one morning you'll wake up and you won't want to do it anymore. Just make sure you've got enough money in your back pocket to make a decision that day, whether you are going to do something different or whether, you know what, you're fine and you keep on going. And I think that's the point, really, getting the business in a position where, and that's what we've done with Jim and Matthew, is that hopefully at some point, if I want to step back, there's somebody that can buy my share between them and Charlie or whatever. And that's quite important for us to have an exit strategy at some point. But I think at this moment in time, we love the job so much. I suppose it just, I think the other thing, a bit of advice, no matter what's gone on that day, Charlie and I in particular, always have a laugh. And it's normally like laugh or cry. I get that. But, always have a laugh and a giggle. And that's when we go out, we have so much fun as a team, because it is work hard, play hard. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You've just got to keep going.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with that. So I'm just conscious of time. We're coming up to to 7 o'clock, which was our planned finish time. Have we got any more questions on the line from anyone, please? It looks like, in which case we might be finishing up just about bang on time, which is a first for us. Right, well, if no one else has got any further questions, then I'd just like to say a massive thanks, first of all, to Tom for coming on. I was fortunate enough to be on a course that Tom was heading up about 5 or 6 years ago. And I think I've never forgotten a piece of advice that you gave me, which was, before you get into all of this, you've got to make sure that you know what to do, when it all goes wrong on that day. Make sure that you know how to handle any situation on farm, and to really put your nose to the coalface. And it's abundantly clear that, by turning out in the mornings and working with whoever is on farm to get to know them, that, as well as obviously being an excellent role model for all of the guys in your business, that actually, you're able to turn to and do the work as well. And I think it's abundantly clear that that's probably in no small part, part of the success of the business. So I just wanted to say thanks ever so much for coming on, Tom. I've certainly really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure everyone else has as well. And also, another thank you to Fram Farmers, our sponsors. And thank you everyone else for joining us. Yeah, and also Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.